Hi, my name is Gülsün Özyıldız, and I want to talk about Krashen's 5 hypotheses. The first hypothesis is acquisition and learning distinction. It states that the adults have two distinct and independent ways of developing a competence in a second language. Language acquisition is a subconscious process, like the way a child learns a language. In non-technical, language acquisition is picking up a language that is something that a child or person does not deliberately do. The result of acquisition is acquired competence is also subconscious. We are generally not consciously aware of the rules of the language. We have acquired instead. We have a file for correctness, grammatical sentences sound right or feel right, or errors feel wrong. Even if we do not consciously know what the rule was violated, the language learning refers to the conscious knowledge of a second language, knowing the rules, being aware of them, and being able to speak about them. In technical terms, learning is knowing about a language known to most people as grammar or rules. Thus, language learning can be compared to learning about a language. And the acquisition and learning distinction hypothesis claims that an adult do not lose their ability to acquire a language the way that children do, just as the research shows that error correction has little effect on children learning a first language. And the second one hypothesis. The second one hypothesis is the natural order hypothesis. This states that we acquire the rules of language in a predictable order, some rules tending to come early and others late. The natural order hypothesis argues that the acquisition of grammatical structures occurs in a predictable sequences. The natural order hypothesis applies to both first language acquisition and second language acquisition, but also similar, the order of acquisition often differs between first and second languages. In other words, order of acquisition of the first language is different from the order of acquisition of that same language as the second language. Regardless of native language, all language learners of any single second language appear to follow the same predictable order. For example, learners of English as a second language generally acquiring grammatical structure of yes-no questions before the grammatical structure of WH questions. Brown reported that children acquiring English as a first language tended to acquire certain grammatical morphemes or function words earlier than others. The third one hypothesis is the monitor hypothesis. The monitor hypothesis claims that acquisition and learning are used in very specific ways. And normally, acquisition initiates our utterance in a second language and is responsible for our fluency. Learning has one function, and that is as a monitor or editor, learning comes into play to make changes in the form of our utterances, and after it has been produced by acquired system. This can happen before we speak or write or after self-correction. And the monitor hypothesis implies that formal rules or conscious learning play a limited role in the second language performance. The monitor tends to show us our failures and errors and fix our output. Krashen also points to the fact that we only will have a good use of our output if the student has a background of the structures and rules of grammar. Also according to the Krashen, the process of developing second language depends on 3 conditions, and these are time, focus on form, and know the real. The fourth one hypothesis. The fourth one hypothesis is the input hypothesis. According to this, the results of a second language are related to the input that acquirer receives or is exposed to. And this input has to be understood comprehensible input. And it is from this precept, Krashen established that in order for the acquirer to achieve results, the level of language he is exposed to must follow the I+1 standard, where I means acquiring actual competence in the language and +1 means a bit further. Based on how children acquire the first language in the caretaker speech, a simple language used with children for them to understand, Krashen proposed something similar to be worked on with the adults: the teacher talk, the foreigner talk, and a last one, the interlanguage talk, also known as simple code. The teacher talk is the classroom language that accompanies exercise, and the language of explanations in the second language in some foreign classrooms, and language of classroom management. Interlanguage is simply the speech of other second language acquirers. And the last one, foreigner talk. Foreigner talk may be of two kinds. This term has been used to describe native speakers' imitations of second language speech, or rather their acquisition of aspects of these interlanguage. And the last one, hypothesis. The last one hypothesis is the effective filter hypothesis. Learners require an environment where they feel safe to take risks necessary to learn the language. A learner's emotional state will affect their receptiveness to comprehensible. This is my end of the video. Thanks for listening.